Hey, good morning, guys. Happy Monday, our last 2 days of the school year. That's pretty exciting. Today we're going to talk about basic T factoring, but we're only going to talk about when we mix up our positives and negatives. So, for example, something where I might have x plus 3 and x minus 2, something like that. So, if you remember what we did then, when we FOIL, we have our first product, our outer product, our inner product, and our last. So let's do that. First product would have been x times x, which is x squared. Outer would have been x and a negative 2. Would be negative 2x. Inner product would be positive 3 in x. And our last product would be positive 3 times a negative 2. So a positive times a negative is a negative, and 3 times 2 is 6. And then what we have to do is we combine our like terms in the middle. And I would have x squared plus 1x minus 6. And if you remember, this is a little bit different because this last term is negative. So when we had two positives, x plus something else, our third term was positive. When we had two negative terms, a negative times a negative is a positive, so our final term was still positive. But now we're going to talk about if I have different signs inside these parentheses, then my last term is going to be negative. So we should always be looking at the last term. All right, so let's decide if I have different signs. Here I've got a negative last term, so yes. These are different. Here I have a positive last term, so maybe I'll put different, same. Here I have a negative last term, so these will be different. Negative last term. Signs will be different. Positive last term, so these will be the same sign. And very last, I will have a negative term, so I will have different signs. Okay, now let's try these first two. Just as a reminder, what are we doing here? We're trying to find the two numbers that multiply to negative 24, multiply to our last term, and add or subtract to this middle term. So when we have different signs, I will have a negative last term, and I will have to decide what two terms subtract or have a difference of 2. So 24, 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. And again, if you're ever not sure, what you can do is you can take 24 and divide it by 1 in your calculator, and then 24 and divide by 2 in your calculator, and 24 and divide by 3 in your calculator. And that'll get you all of these. So since I have different terms, different signs. Since I have different signs, this last term is going to be negative here. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask ourselves the difference. Which pair has a difference of 2? So which pair are 2 numbers apart? 1 minus 24 is going to be negative 24. Negative 23. So the difference is 23. They're 23 apart on a number line. 2 minus 12 is negative 10. 3 minus 8 is negative 5. And 4 minus 6 is negative 2. Okay, so these two numbers are 2 apart. But they're 2 apart. And I want 2 numbers that are 2 apart. The only thing is, if I want them to be positive 2, if I want the difference between these 2 numbers to be positive 2, if I want these to combine to positive 2, then which one has to be positive and which one has to be negative? Well, I want more positives than negatives, so I want 6 to be positive and 4 to be negative. And I could even switch this around. I could say positive 6 minus 4 would get me 2. So positive 6 minus 4 is 2. That's what I'm looking for. And then I can rewrite my final answer as x plus 6 and x minus 4. Again, we just dropped these 2 factors right into our binomials. So this is my real final answer right here. I should say minus 20. That was my typo. So let's try this again. Factors of 20, or factors of negative 20. 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5, and that's it. Okay, and I want these numbers to be 1 number apart. So 1 and 20 are not 1 apart. These are 19 apart. And again, we take 1 minus 20. These are 19 apart. These are 8 numbers apart, but 4 and 5 are 1 number apart. And if I want this to be a positive 1, if I want more positives than negatives, then which number out of these two has to be positive? I want more positives, so 5 is going to be positive. So let's see, I want a positive 5. And since this last term is negative, they've got to be different signs. Negative 4 and positive 5. Negative 4. And positive 5. All right, so we're going to find our factors of negative 54, and the factors of 54. So I've got 1 in 54. And then I can divide 54 by 2 in a calculator and get 27. Divide it by 3, and I would have 18. 6 times 9 is 54. Now, because this last term is negative, because that's a negative, then I know I have opposite signs in my parentheses, which is why I've already got those written out as opposite signs. And I'm going to look for which 2 numbers are 3 apart. So 1 and 54 are definitely not 3 numbers apart. Those are 53 numbers apart. 2 and 27, still not 3 apart. Those are 25 numbers apart. 3 and 18 are 15 numbers apart. but 6 and 9 are 3 numbers apart. Now, I want -3, so this is the pair I'm going to choose. Because they're 3 apart, but I want more negatives than positives. So if I want more negatives, then which number is going to have a negative sign? Well, that 9's going to have to be negative because it's more than 6. So there's that one. And number 4 here. What are my factors of 8? I've got 1 times 8 is 8, 2 times 4, and that's it. I want them to be 2 numbers apart. I want 2 numbers apart on the number line. 1 and 8 are definitely not 2 apart, but 2 and 4 are. And if I want more negatives than positives, this middle term is negative, so if I want more negatives than positives, then what I can do is I want the bigger number to be negative, because I want more negatives. So I'll make the bigger number my negative, smaller number my positive, and that's where we're on for today. So your homework is that quizzes, and feel free to email me with any questions you've got. I'll do my best to help you out.